I think Liam Lawson deserved it more. I think Yuki Tsunoda is a little bit overrated and he's not that good. To prove it, I have done some statistical analysis. Let's take a look at Yuki Tsunoda's career from 2021 to 2024 and see how he performed compared to his teammates. And then we will also compare him with Liam Lawson because they were also teammates for multiple races in 2023 and also in 2024. So let's start with the 2021 season, the debut of Yuki Tsunoda. Okay, so here is the driver standings. On ninth, you can see Pierre Gasly, 110 points. And in P14, you can see Yuki Tsunoda, 32 points. Gasly is ahead of both of the Alpines and both of the Astons, including Lance Stroll. Now, I am aware that this was Yuki Tsunoda's debut season, and a lot of people will give leniency to Yuki for that. But keep in mind that we are considering Yuki for the second Red Bull seat. You cannot take your sweet time to get acclimated with the car and lag that behind your teammate and not even able to beat Lance Stroll in a superior car. Yes, the AlphaTauri was a superior car in the 2021 season compared to the Astons and the Alpines when you consider the points differential. If you look at the constructor standings, it's evident. The AlphaTauri had 142 points. If Yuki scored 15 more points, like 13 more points, they would have ahead of Alpine, which I think they could have done. But because of Yuki's lackluster debut, let's put it that way, they were behind Alpine in the constructor standings. And again, I agree and I understand that this was Yuki's debut season. But if you want to be considered for the second Red Bull seat, because there you will be challenging for world championships, you will challenging for race wins. So I don't know, not that impressive if you ask me. And if you look at how they have performed, both of the drivers throughout the year, in the first one third of the season, Tsunoda had 8 points to Gasly's 37. And in the final part, Gasly scored 44 to Tsunoda's 14. The difference between 44 minus 14 is 30. Here, the difference is 29. So in the course of a season, as the season progressed, the difference between Tsunoda and Gasly in terms of points and ultimately in terms of performance didn't close that much. You have to improve as the season progresses, which we did not see in his debut season. Another important thing that I want to bring your attention to is the average points scored by Yuki and Gasly in each third of the season. The improvement is there. Yes, he improved in each third of season in terms of the average points scored and the average position he finished in. But it's not enough. The curve of growth, the curve of improvement is very minimal, if at all. If you can consider this as an improvement, because I don't consider this as an improvement, because in the first one third of the season, Gasly is 29 points ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, and in the last one third of the season, he is 30 points ahead of you. So, in my opinion, he didn't improve at all. But even if you want to give him the benefit of doubt, you have to admit that the rate of improvement throughout the 2021 season, Tsunoda's debut, lackluster at best. Now let's move on to the 2022 season. Keep in mind that in 2022, AlphaTauri did not have that good of a car. The car was shit. So the difference between Yuki and Gasly, his teammate at the time, should be less because both of you are in shit cars. Let's see if that is the case. Here is the driver standings of the 2022 Formula 1 season, and you can see P14, Pierre Gasly, 23 points. Yuki Tsunoda, P17, 12 points. Gasly has almost twice the points of Tsunoda, and he is, this time, not only behind Lance Stroll, but also behind Mick Schumacher, who is shit. A lot of people, I don't know why, they give a lot of leniency to Mick Schumacher, saying that he didn't really get a good car to, show his potential, whatever the fuck that means. Regardless, Yuki should have beat him. If you want to be considered for the Red Bull second seat, where you will be challenging for race wins and championships down the line, you should at least be capable of doing all of that, because that's what the team is all about. You are not making a strong case when you have scored nearly half as much points as your teammate in a shit car and you still haven't managed to close the gap, and you're behind Mick Schumacher, who is shit, is all I'm gonna say. Now, in the constructor standings, it seems that AlphaTauri had similar pace compared to the Haas. If Yuki performed a little bit better, if Yuki was actually that talented, he could have squeezed a bit of extra performance out of his car. Let me just move it. Yeah. He could have squeezed out a little bit extra performance out of his car and finished ahead of the Haas Ferrari, which he clearly didn't manage to do. Now, the points comparison between Gasly and Tsunoda for this season is a little bit interesting, because in the first 1/3 of the season, you can see that Yuki is ahead with 11 points and Gasly only has 6. And I was thinking at this point, like, okay, Yuki is improving. It's good. Now he will be able to, take the fight to Gasly and make a stronger case for him for that second Red Bull seat. Obviously, in 2022, Sergio Perez was still, okay. So it would have happened down the line if it would have happened. But at this point, I was hopeful about Yuki Tsunoda. But in the remaining 2/3 of the season, he fucked it up. The critical thing here is from Monaco all the way to Japan, he didn't score a single point. It's kind of sad. And yes, I know that, Pierre Gasly, his more experienced teammate, also had a run of 0 points for like 5 race weekends in a row over here, as you can see. But you have failed to score points for so many weekends in a row, bro. That's something that Mick Schumacher would do. And again, if you are campaigning for the second Red Bull seat, where you are expected to fight for pole positions, race wins, and championships, and help Red Bull win constructors, you cannot have such a huge and long run of pointless finishes when your teammate is actually scoring some decent points here and there, is all I'm going to say. Now, this is a little bit fun to say. I'm just comparing the average points of Yuki and Pierre over here. Horrible. These the remaining 2/3 of the season, absolutely horrible. I mean, he is way outside of the points, his average finishing position. This middle run didn't do him any good. Not that he was in the good books anyway. Now, let's move on to the 2023 season. In 2023, Yuki Tsunoda had the pleasure of driving alongside 3 different teammates. First was Nick De Vries. Second was Daniel Ricciardo for a brief moment, then he broke his wrist. Liam Lawson came in. That's the most interesting part, because we'll compare both of the drivers. And then Daniel Ricciardo returned. So we have 3 drivers that we can compare Yuki with. This will prove how terrible Yuki actually is. Not terrible, but mediocre at best. Nick De Vries raced with the AlphaTauri for the first 10 races of the 2023 season. He scored 0 points during that period of time. That's why you're not seeing the points comparison. And also, during the same period of time, Yuki Tsunoda scored 2 points. So it's not that he was that good anyway. He had only 2 points finishes, one in Australia, one in Azerbaijan, 2 points. And he was, 0 points all of the same races. Now, the concerning thing, or should I say the interesting thing, is from Monaco all the way to Great Britain. Because the results that these two have is interchangeable. If you interchange these results, except for Canada, it's a little bit of extra gap. But Monaco, Spain, Canada, I guess to some degree, Austria, and also Great Britain, these results are interchangeable. If you change it and you see it from face value, you couldn't say whether it was Yuki Tsunoda or it was Nick De Vries. That's saying something. And this is your 3rd season in Formula One. The car was not the best, I agree. But at the same time, you have to decisively beat Nick de Vries, who is so terrible, who is absolutely shit. He scored 0 points in the 10 races, and you scored only 2. So that's saying something. The next teammate we can compare Yuki with was Daniel Ricciardo in 2023. Now, this one we have to take it with a bit of grain of salt because these two races, Hungary and Belgium, Daniel was there and then he broke his wrist in the Dutch Grand Prix weekend. And then he returned back from United States and continued all the way until the end of the season. In the entire time together, he scored 6 points and Yuki scored 11. Props to Yuki. Massive respect, nearly 2 times the points in the same number of races, even though Daniel had that issue. And also keep in mind that the car was a little bit difficult to drive that season. So can't really say much other than the fact that good job to Yuki. Daniel Ricciardo is washed. This is the first proof that Danny is washed. But either way, great job to Yuki in decisively beating a teammate. Thank God. Daniel Ricciardo was definitely better than Nick de Vries. Good job, Yuki. Now, this is where things go against him once again. Now, in Italy, he had the engine issue, nothing he could do. In Singapore, he had that collision with Sergio Perez, so again, not really his fault in these two occasions. But overall, like in the first race, Netherlands, Liam Lawson finishes ahead of him. And the reason, and this one is a blow because Liam joined the Dutch Grand Prix weekend in the middle. He was not even a designated driver until Daniel Ricciardo broke his wrist. So that should sting Yuki Tsunoda a little bit. Singapore, Liam Lawson gets his first points in Formula One. In the next race in Japan, he finishes ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Nothing really to say about it. And in Qatar, the temperature was all over the place. It was a very difficult race, high adrenaline and demanding circuit, so you can't really say much about this. But here, forget Yuki. This was the debut of Liam Lawson. He joined the race in the middle of a weekend and he delivered. If you compare that with Yuki Tsunoda's debut, which was lackluster, which was a complete season in a much better car, compare that to Liam Lawson's debut, looks pretty impressive now, doesn't it? So finally, we go to the 2024, the most recent Formula One season. First, from Bahrain to Singapore, we have Daniel Ricciardo, and then after that, we have Liam Lawson. So let's compare both of the drivers against Yuki Tsunoda to see how average Yuki Tsunoda really is and why Liam Lawson deserves that second Red Bull seat. This is the points comparison of Daniel and Yuki. It's a little bit sad if you're a Ricciardo fan because you can see the string of 0 points finishes. Then if you go ahead and compare where Yuki and Daniel finished in races with respect to each other, you can see Daniel was actually nowhere. Like towards the end of his stint in Formula One from Belgium all the way to, I think, Azerbaijan, he finished ahead of Yuki, but they were all outside the point, so it doesn't really matter. I think except for Belgium, he scored a point or two there. Anyway, like throughout the entire season in 2024, up until Singapore, Yuki was ahead in most of the cases and he was scoring the majority of the points, and it also reflected in the performance. But that's not what people want to talk about. People want to talk about this, the race positions of Liam and Yuki. Like we talked about the points earlier on. Liam scored 4 points, while Yuki Tsunoda scored 8. 8? Yeah, he scored 8 points. And people are saying that because of this, Yuki Tsunoda deserves that Red Bull seat. When Liam Lawson joined Alpha Tauri, V-Carb, or whatever the fuck they call it, in 2024, there was already a tight battle for P6. Things were tough. He was again the mid-season replacement. He had a little bit of time this time around, like unlike 2023, where he jumped in the car in the middle of the race weekend. He had a little bit of extra time, a couple of weeks before the United States Grand Prix. I'll give him that. But in USGP, great performance, great second debut once again. Again, we didn't have these type of moments with Yuki Tsunoda. He had good performances here and there, don't get me wrong, but if you look at Yuki's entire Formula One career, it's just not that impressive. It's not that eye-catching. You will not see Yuki's performance and like, wow, this guy is great. Let's just put him in the second Red Bull seat and see what he can do. He never really performed on that level. And all of the people who are saying that Yuki deserved it, they're just looking at these 6 races. And a lot could happen in these 6 races. Liam Lawson was under a lot of pressure because VCAR was fighting for P6 in the constructors. The broader point that I want to make here is that Yuki is good, decent, okay, reliable. You give him a car and he, brings the car home in, respectable positions some of the time. Occasionally, there are some good results here and there. I get it. I get that. I understand the perspective. But it's not impressive. It's not eye-catching. Like his debut in 2021 was not that good. Compare that to the debut Liam Lawson had in the circumstances where he had it, the time he had, the little bit of time he had to get used to the car, especially in the Dutch Grand Prix last year. Like he jumped into the car in the middle of the weekend. He had no idea. In United States this year, he performed better than Yuki Tsunoda, who was driving that car for the entire season. Yuki was crappy in the United States run. Like people focus on the battle between Lando and Max in US, in Austin. But Liam Lawson had a great debut, like not technically his debut in Formula One, but like his second stint, mid-season sub. It was a great race. And again, like I said, Red Bull needs that. Red Bull needs a driver that can adapt quickly. Red Bull needs a driver who is aggressive like Liam Lawson. There are no amazing stories of battles of Yuki Tsunoda like we have of Liam Lawson. In USGP, Liam Lawson had that battle with Fernando Alonso. It was fun. Kicked up a little bit of controversy. In Mexico, Liam Lawson goes head-to-head against Sergio Perez and Franco Colapinto later on in that race. Fun. In Brazil, he had that battle against Sergio Perez, and that was also fun. He made Sergio Perez lock up during the sprint race when the Mexican was trying to overtake Liam. Fun to see. We never see these kind of moments with Yuki. Yeah, he is good here and there, but again, if you want to be considered for the second Red Bull seat, where you will be challenging for race wins and championships, you have to fight tooth and nail. You have to be that aggressive. You have to learn quickly, and your performance should be eye-catching. So all of the people who say that Liam Lawson doesn't deserve it, blah, 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 he deserves it more than Yuki Tsunoda. And for the upcoming 2025 season, I think the pressure on Yuki is even more. Right now, he needs to decisively beat Isaac Hadjar. The way Pierre Gasly beat Yuki in Yuki's debut, like remember in the 2021 season, Yuki Tsunoda scored 32 points compared to Pierre Gasly's 110. He needs to have that gap against Isaac Hadjar in 2025 season. He needs to decisively beat Isaac to make a case for himself to stay in Formula One. It's been so many years, mate. You need to be aggressive. The rate of improvement is not that good. You are not picking fights against more experienced drivers and winning wheel-to-wheel exchanges consistently. And on top of that, here's another problem with Yuki Tsunoda. Motherfucker crashes too much. This year, 2024 Hungarian GP qualifying, he crashed it. He was trying to find some, extra time, went outside of the track, put it in the barriers. He did it once again, I think, in Mexico. Was it Mexico? Yeah, I think it was in Mexico. He crashed out in Mexico and in qualifying, got himself and his teammate knocked out in Q2, and then he also crashed in the main race with Alexander Albon. So Yuki Tsunoda also has this recurring problem where he loves to put the car into the barriers. Like, look, I understand that every time it's not his fault, but over the course of a big season, if you want to be considered as a championship contender for the second seat in Red Bull, you cannot have a scrappy season. You have to reliably bring the car home in decent positions. You have to extract the maximum out of the machinery. You have to adapt quickly. You cannot take your sweet time. In his debut season, in 2021 and 2022, Yuki took his sweet time to get used to the car. He was still way behind Pierre Gasly in terms of performance. You have to match your teammate. At least, motherfucker didn't even do. 4 years in Formula One, didn't even do it. 2025 needs to decisively beat Isaac. Otherwise, he's out of F1, I think so. We had a good run with him. Some nice memes, nice jokes, but yeah, I think the writing's on the wall for Yuki right now. A lot of people are like, oh my god, Yuki deserved it. Why? Anyway, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. And I'm excited to see what Liam can do in that Red Bull in the upcoming season. I'll see you later.